Cool. So we should be live, but for now, I'm just going to keep an eye on signs that we are live before we start assuming people are there. So happy Thursday and happy 2022.
Yeah, first stream.
It is. Yeah, there we go. We're live. Awesome. So welcome in, everybody. Today is a very special occasion. We have new overlays at the bottom for my stream. We have it's the first Learning with Luce of 2022, and we have two wonderful guests with us today, which is super exciting. So we have Cassiano from MongoDB, who is the wonderful author of the article that we will go through today. And then, the pleasure as well of being joined by Joyce, head of DevRel at Postman, which is awesome. So apart from being the author of this amazing article, Cassiano, do you want to introduce yourself to our wonderful friends on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very honored to be the first stream of 2022.
It's super exciting.
So thanks for having me, Luce. Hey, guys. My name is Cassiano. I'm a senior solution architect with MongoDB. So I work closely with customers, right? And we're going to talk about why I decided to write this. It's not only to help me on my job, but also to help the community, right? So that's like, I think it was October last year I wrote this. So I've been working in IT since I was 18. I was a developer for a long, long time, about 14 years. And I've been doing kind of like pre-sales activities, solution architect for the past 10 years. I am based in Chicago today, covering the central area of the US, but I am Brazilian. So if you have any Brazilians and want to ask any questions in Portuguese, I'm here as well. So
it's funny, actually. I'm learning Portuguese Brazilian at the moment on Duolingo.
Oh, nice. Awesome. If you have any questions anytime, Luce, just shoot me.
Cool. So, welcome, Cassiano. Thank you for joining us. And last but by no means least, Joyce, please introduce yourselves to our friends on the internet.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually from Chicago, but I'm based in San Francisco. I'm in the mountains right now, though. I'm in Tahoe. So I'm really pleased to be here, and I will be critiquing Cassiano's blog, being very, very critical about how he describes Postman. So I'm just here to backseat drive.
Hey, you never know. You might teach us loads of tips and tricks about Postman today.
Maybe.
We can hope. There we go. Hey, Lauren's here. Welcome in. So Lauren is one of my amazing colleagues for now. She's on to an exciting new adventure tomorrow, but I'm not saying too much about that, but she's amazing. So welcome in. So cool. So we've got this blog post. Hey, my friend Steve is here as well. So I've got friends from my Twitch community away from just MongoDB joining us. So that's always fun. Welcome in, friends. So as I mentioned, we're kind of going to go through this tutorial today. So if you're new to Learning with Luce, the idea behind this series is that each month I will have an amazing and talented and interesting guest or guests on who have created some kind of content, whether it's on our developer hub, as we call it, which is what this page is on here, where people have their names associated with it, or I happen to know they're responsible for one of the articles we have on our .com areas. So, so each month we'll have a guest on who will come and teach me something, whether it's going through a tutorial or just sharing their knowledge about something. So today we have Cassiano here, who wrote an amazing article back in October, all about how you can automate the automation on MongoDB Atlas. So the aim is to just we're going to go through this blog post. Cassiano can talk us through it. Joyce can make us do a better job with Postman and teach us the tips and tricks. And as she's already said, she can critique and make sure that we use the right terminology. So before we get started reading, as the author of this article, Cassiano, is there anything that you wanted to share?
No, I think, how can I say, I don't know you guys, but one of the things that I learn in life, if I'm doing something, repeatedly, right, that I actually have to do all the time, I really like to find a way to automate, right? And what are you going to see with MongoDB here, right, on this blog that I just hey, MongoDB has an awesome offering, which is our MongoDB Atlas, right, being a fully managed, SaaS solution where you can just click a few, clicks and some buttons, and you're going to have a fully managed, MongoDB. So that is amazing. All the automation behind this. The reason why I mentioned the automation is that even you have already all that automation to spin up the machines in whatever cloud you want it and have that set up all automatically for you. There's a way that you like, hey, how I can do that on my own, right? So how can I just then drive what MongoDB Atlas provide you through APIs, so I can make my own automation, right? And we're gonna kind of, when we go through the article, I'm gonna give you guys some examples that I've seen. And in my past, I also work a lot on the CICD space, which was based on automation, right? I worked for other companies doing a lot of automation on that space. So that's what, kind of like, and the need for creating kind of like, demos and showing how to use those. So that's a good collection was created. I believe from until October last year, that's like the most updated, right? With my, MongoDB, my release new APIs. The idea is that the community can help us to keep that updated. And also, and then Joyce is going to mention like how we partner with Postman to make that available in other ways, more efficient ways. You got to see that through the post, yeah.
Awesome. And I'm sure as we go through it, there'll be things that have changed since October as well. Like, I'm sure we're going to learn about some cool things, both about MongoDB Atlas, our other products, and Postman along the way, which is fun. Just seeing in chat there, people are sharing where they're watching from. So Lawrence in Pennsylvania, Joel's in Ottawa, Canada, and then we've got Vinit in India. So that's cool. We've got friends from around the world. My accent is probably a giveaway. I live in the United Kingdom.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. I mean, I guess people can move around, but yeah, no, I live in I live in Manchester in England. I'm not from here originally, so like in England, even though it's a really small country, like you have regional accents, and so I don't sound anything like the people that grew up where I live, but that's okay. Cool. So let's Sociable Steve's in the UK as well. Cool. So let's get started. It's enough talking. It's time for action. So we've got some introductory text here, which is just talking about the different products we've got. You can easily deploy stuff for the few clicks, as you already mentioned. And yeah, that's like automation. It's like you can just click a few buttons, like you say, and just boom, there you go. There you go. So, but how can you manage all these features in your own way? APIs. Well, yeah, everyone loves a good API. We test their APIs at Postman, of course.
Actually, on the Postman forums and support desks, how to access a database is one of the most popular questions. And most times they're using it for testing, but I think automation is a perfectly acceptable. Save yourself some headache.
Nice. Yeah. So hopefully as time goes on, we can go through this and we can learn some great ways that we can use Postman together with MongoDB Atlas. Because, SQL is not the only way. Come to the NoSQL document databases side. We don't have cookies, but we have an easier life and fewer headaches. So it's just talking about here about how you can integrate Atlas as all parts of your development lifecycle. And then you can give DevOps teams, you can automate current processes across environments, which, let's be honest, we're busy people. The fewer clicks and things that we have to do, the better. So I'm all for automation.
Yeah, and then just if I can kind of like give an example, right, guys? It's like whenever you're building your CI/CD process, and the more we drive, our architecture to a microservices architecture, leveraging containers, Kubernetes clusters, all that kind of thing. The idea to have ephemeral everything, right, where you can use that, spin up, use that to do whatever you need to do, and then terminate that is the way to do it. So what you can do here when I mentioned on the CI/CD is, hey, I don't need to have all my lower environments always up and running, right? The leverage you can have by creating that on your automation is to call the APIs, to provisioning a new MongoDB instance. You can load some data on that if you need it, right? Or you can just restore some backup right into that. Run, Also, the CI/CD process is going to be deploying the application. Your microservices is going to then run a lot of tests against that will need underneath that to persist data in a database, that database being MongoDB. Burn the data that you need, get the results of the test that you need. As soon as you're done with that run, you can then simply go and terminate that entire cluster if you want it, right? So it's to find a ways to be more efficient on that front. And the good thing is like, hey, instead of doing that, driving that through the UI, you have these APIs with MongoDB, and this collection will have samples that will help you build that into your CI/CD pipeline, right?
Awesome. Yeah, as Joel said, automate all the things. Like, as you touched on earlier with demos, whether it's spinning up demo samples that you can then tear down afterwards, or something else you want to automate with CI/CD, like automating things is just important these days. And the easier we can make it, the better.
Yeah, and guys, like just to give you like some other two, I didn't put all the examples here, but I'm taking advantage of this stream to share other samples, right, examples. But one of the other things that is, hey, this is to implement on your CI/CD. Other things that you can do it is like help you building, how to manage infrastructure, right? By calling all those APIs. So you can do that, build all like, a script, share that. More and more you see infrastructure as code. It's worth mentioning, it's not the focus of this, but like, MongoDB also has a Terraform provider that allows a lot of folks to do admin through the Terraform tool. So that's outstanding. One interesting things that I've been seeing talking to a lot of customers is like, hey, developers are very important nowadays, right? And it's hard to find new developers, and developers want to work in an environment that is great for them. So to improve the developer experience, a lot of customers are actually building development portals where like, hey, I don't have to go through a lot of hurdles, finding a bunch of tickets just so I can have my entire stack so I can start working. So a lot of customers are like building a better experience for developers by putting together a portal. So whatever they decide, like, hey, I want to build a microservices using this language, I want to use this particular database, they will build that portal, and underneath, like behind that, they're going to create the automation to actually like, hey, the end of that, form that they're going to be, going through that portal is that all the automation is going to be ready with like, they're going to create a repo for their code with samples for a microservices to follow all those patterns. And also they're going to just like, hey, and here is the database, for example, MongoDB, for you to use on your development environment, right? So those are like, three different examples of how to leverage the APIs to help with the automation and better experience for everyone involved, right?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, awesome. But yeah, like you say, it's a platform for you to share lots of examples. So obviously you've given one in here that you just talked about, but there's lots of use cases for anything you want to automate and you want a database as part of it. This is there to help you. Of course, there we go. So we've got the examples here. So it's talking about you can use curl, but you can also have it in our favorite tool, Postman. Exactly. Do you want to, it's like we're just making an assumption that everyone knows what Postman is. Joyce, do you want to just do a very quick overview of how you describe Postman?
It's an API platform. I think Cassiano did a good job explaining it here, but I see curl as an example. I like to say, like, for what most people use it as, it's like curl, but like with a curl on steroids. You get to do a little bit more besides just copying and pasting a curl.
Yeah, and if you're passionate about curl, if you click on that, like, on the MongoDB documentation, I put a link there, right? It does a really good job of giving examples on how to do all that, right? But I don't know, like I've been working with APIs, like, since web services, right, with XML, like before that. But then when Post came with like RESTful APIs, I started using. So I've been using Postman for a long, long time. And I just like, and I talked and I did some research, and it's still a very beloved, tool for all developers. So I just like, hey, I want to hit the most developers possible. So that's why we put this together, right?
That's
Yeah.
a good point. I should do a little bit of bragging and not call Postman curl on steroids, but Postman has 17, I think 17 million people that use Postman. So a lot of people are familiar with it. And so if you're trying to show somebody how to work with your API, and maybe it has a special kind of auth, or maybe you want to show them an API workflow, I think we're about to see some API reference. And sometimes you can find entire workflows that are documented, and you can just pull them into your local environment and just add your credentials and hit send.
Yeah, and it's so helpful. I was using it the other day. I'm trying to make a Twitter bot that will tweet out random quotes and the things I highlight on Amazon Kindle. And I was using Postman just to test out if my credentials were right. And it was so helpful. And I think Lauren speaks for all of us when she says, I love Postman. Yep. But 17 million, that is some impressive numbers.
Yeah, a lot of people are working with APIs now.
True. Someone's got a siren. Who needs a fire engine?
That sounds like Chicago.
I live. Yeah, I live. I'm sorry, I couldn't mute myself.
Oh no, you're okay. You don't need to mute yourself. We like a bit of background music. Code to fire engines. Yeah. Cool. So now we get to actually follow some instructions now. So step 1 is download and install Postman. Because we are live and I just didn't know how long it would take to download, I did go ahead and download and install Postman, but I've done absolutely nothing with it, as you can see. It's a blank canvas. So we have Postman. If anyone gets upset by a light theme, I will try and change it. Can you change it?
You can change it, but I personally think it's the coder's choice. So if you like light theme.
It's only, to be fair, it's only set on light theme because I've literally freshly installed. I've not touched anything. So we'll let our viewers decide. If enough people tell me that they want it in a dark theme, you can teach us how to make it dark theme, because I can't even remember. But the other cool thing here is that you've shared this link, Cassiano, which is training on Postman. So, well, this is cool. It's a whole learning center. So, Joyce, feel free to plug the learning center and tell us all the reasons why we should run and go and learn Postman right now.
Well, I'll give a plug for something that I built. So if you scroll down slightly next to the trophy icon, 30 Days of Postman.
Oh, yeah.
That's a developer challenge. So every day you learn, if you're new to coding or you're new to Postman, I would say. So if you don't know how to do pull requests in Postman, then you can do every 30 days, you learn a new coding thing.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. It's taking a minute to load, but yeah, hopefully in a minute we will.
Yeah, and just to give my experience as well, I put it there because it was helpful for me when I was going through finding how to build a few things when I need to go a little bit more advanced, right? So when I need to know hey, I want to chain all these APIs together. How can I go grab values from the result of one API call so I can use on my second call, right? So I started using it, and that was very helpful. And it's good to learn. I didn't know that this 30 days was made for you, Jai, by you. So that's very exciting.
This is amazing, though.
Yeah,
I'm 100% going to go and follow this after stream.
Authorization, I would say, if you have any kind of special, tricky authorization, you need to tell people how to do that explicitly.
Yeah. Twitter API, enough said. That's no. Fuchs saying what about Insomnia? Well, yeah, but Insomnia is an option, but Postman's better.
You can pick whichever tool you want. That's the good thing about developer tools. If you like Insomnia, you should use Insomnia.
True. I must admit, I jump around clients depending on what machine I'm on and just where my head's at the time. So I've used Postman, I've used Insomnia, I've used Thunder Client inside of VS Code. I find Postman, personally, a completely unbiased opinion, I do find Postman better, just because you often find collections where people will literally make you a bunch of endpoints all pre-configured in Postman so that you can get started with something, which I find really helpful. And we'll see an example of that later on. And I've also used it when doing stuff with the Twitter API the other day. I do think collections are brilliant.
Well, Foo Hex. It turns out Postman is actually in the chat, and you've just offended Postman.
We take no responsibility for that, Postman. We love you. Cool. So someone's showing us how to do dark theme in Postman, but it all depends if our lovely viewers want dark theme in Postman. But yeah, so that's the specific learning of like the 30 days. But obviously there's a whole lot of different things here that seem to be pretty cool. So you've even got Get Started. Oh, what's Space Camp?
That's our, if you want to take hands-on learning, like sign up for a lesson, you can actually, I think we had one yesterday, Introduction for Developers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I like the icons as well. I'm a big fan of icons.
We have a good design team.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm not we have a design team here, but I use icons for things like YouTube videos I make. So I pay a subscription to a company called Flat Icon, and you can just search and download icons. You can use them for free, but you have to attribute. So I prefer to like just pay money so that it can support the people that make the pretty icons.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's learning. So yeah, like I put the link in chat if anyone wants to learn more about Postman or do the amazing 30 days of Postman challenge with me. Give it a go. I'm going to start it after the stream. So I'll share my Twitter handle. If anyone wants to follow me on Twitter and tell me all about your progress with 30 days, go for it. Sure, we can get Postman's Twitter account all about it. And we can do it. I mean, obviously I know how to code a little bit, but it's always good to
brush up.
It's always good to exactly brush up and learn about these things. So I've just been informed it's a little bit zoomed out, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. There we go. Yeah, if anyone, so as you can see from the bar at the top, I'm running this in a virtual machine because I have a really annoyingly, well, I love it, but I have a super ultra wide monitor, and trying to share your screen it's not pretty for viewers. So I think I've got the settings right, but if anyone wants me to zoom in a bit, please just shout. I'm more than happy to adjust. So we've got Postman installed. We've learned all about the amazing Postman stuff that we can do. What do we do now? So the first thing to do is create an account. I have an account, but we can log into it, which is cloud.mongodb.com.
Yeah, the important thing to mention here, Luce, is that I didn't want to rewrite a lot of things that we already have, right? So I put like links for the steps, right? So it doesn't, first, the blog doesn't stay very extensive, right? But trust me, every single one of those links are gonna get you there to, hey, how can I, create my account within MongoDB Atlas? It's free to sign up, right? Just go sign up there. I think you're also going to see, going through that, I think we put like a coupon code that gives you some credits as well. So it's not, you're only going to be using the free tier that we have. If you want to just experience a little bit more of the features that we have with higher tiers, you can use that for a while.
Yeah, which is awesome. Yeah, I know. Like for me, I love being able to use different ones, and like you're right about sharing the links. So for those that don't know, I work on the content team here within DevRel, and so we create a lot of the articles that you see on .com, for example. And if we sat and wrote how to create an account every time or how to set up a cluster, you'd be there a lot. So it's always good to kind of just link out to existing articles. They're all very well written on how to do these things. So we've got, ignore my clusters that we're not using right now. We will come back to that. So I've got my account already. Oh, welcome in, Findle. My day is going well so far. Hopefully my guests can say the same.
Absolutely. So
we've got our link here, and we've got, if you want some free credits, nice. Then we need to create an API key, which I've already got. And now we need to create a date. Okay, we need to create a deployment. Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, if you want to just kind of like, I don't know if you can do that, Luce, but just show them on where to go to create an API key. That is the main way we're going to be authenticating, right, with MongoDB Atlas, so you can you can run your calls from Postman, right?
Yes. No, that's a very good idea. So I believe
it is, you go on so there's two different levels within Atlas, right? We're talking about organizations, and then within an organization, you have several projects, right? If you want to, like the highest, if you're, kind of like managing the overall Atlas, you would like to create an API key on the organization level, right? So if you go to that gear box, right, Luce, just next to the developer relations organization, yes. On the top, the left top, the gear icon, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, no, the gear one. Yeah, you can do on the project access manager, or if you go to the organization, you're going to see that within organization on the left-hand side, there's access manager.
Yeah, I'm gonna log in as my personal account, because if we're looking at these things, I'd rather risk my account than the company one. So let's go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Because I love MongoDB so much, I even use it for personal projects.
There you go.
But yeah, then I can, if we accidentally leak anything, I can cycle it and all sorts of, no risk. Oh yeah, so Postman was just saying then in the chat, free credits. Yes, absolutely. Who doesn't love free credits, right? So yeah, we can go.
Yeah, and I can say like in two different levels, right? While Luce is doing that, the organization is going to give you the ability to then create new projects, right? You can have an API key on the project level. You're not going to be able to create new projects, but you're going to be able to do other things, like all your database deployments inside that project. You can do other things, right? So it's two level of what you can do. And then once you get to the access manager, for example, the organization, you see that you can create users for that organization. Teams, right, is a group of users, and then you have the third tab there. There is an API, and then if you click on Create API Key, you're gonna see that all it does, right? It is you give a description, you define what is the permissions that you want to do it. And Luce, if you don't want to go and do that, because
no, it's okay, because I can cycle it afterwards, so no one can abuse me.
Yeah. So you just give a description, right, and they will provide you with a key, right, of that you can use, right. So depending on the levels, what you want to define, right, you can do organization owner that has all the permissions, right, to run any of those API samples, and that's where you got, right. You got your public key and your private key. And we would, if someone by any chance is following our instructions, make sure that you copy those two, right? And store somewhere else, because once you leave this page, you're not going to be able to actually copy that private key again. And one second step is, if you want to add more security to your API key, you see that it has that API access list. That is going to say like, hey, I would like to add here. And then, for example, Luce, if she wants to just add another one and put just the IP of her laptop, for example, her computer, that is going to like, hey, with this API key, I only can make calls from this particular API, right? Or you can use CIDR notation to do an IP, a range IP if you want it, right?
Yeah, which can be quite helpful if, say, from my experience, if you're, say, hooking up something to like another, like, I don't know, a website that's hosted in the cloud where the IP might not be static, you can just specify range, and normally that will sort you out. They have a question.
And again, if you already have an API key that you want to use for the rest of the things, just you don't have to use this particular one.
I can't remember. Sorry, this is the wrong project. No, this is one of my side projects. But
yeah,
there you go. That's the right one. But that's cool. We've got demos. That's not what I meant to do. No. Where is it? Oh, it's a project. Rather than organization, I think.
Yeah, if you create on the organization level, Liz, it should be okay to use that API key for all your projects, right?
Yeah, it's just finding it.
If you want to do just on the project level, you can go to, that's the, okay. You want, yeah.
Yeah, so we can generate a new one. Why not? Yeah. We'll just do it as the right project. So I'm copying these into Notepad outside the virtual machine just for safety reasons, but. So we'll cycle these afterwards anyway, but at least, like you say, people can see how we do it. Cool. So we've got those keys now. Nice. Cool. Well, so Joel's answered the question that I've just spotted that we had about performance. So thank you, Joel. Cool. So the first thing is we want to create a database deployment. So we can do that. Let's go back to here. So have you ever done much with MongoDB Atlas stuff before, Joyce?
I've never worked with Atlas. Atlas is relatively newer, right?
I'm not quite sure exactly how old it is, but yeah, it's sort of it's more recent than the server.
It's been around for a while now. It's we just had last year our 5th anniversary of Atlas. So
that's not new then.
Which is fine. It is evolving a lot, and it's growing extensively. People love how easy it is to set up and to have, and how you can scale. All the security that it comes with, that MongoDB put all the best practices on this. And then I think what Luce is doing now is just to create that first one, right? So if you want to just follow, right, what is happening here, like you have 3 different ways to do it, right? We have this preview way of like serverless, right, where you're gonna say like, hey, I don't have to worry in which tier, and it's automatically but this is in preview, right? And what are we doing on the left-hand side? We have dedicated. So now if you're working with your company, you're going to do like, hey, I want a dedicated cluster with dedicated machines for that. The one for learning purpose, right, that's where we have a free tier, is the shared environment, right? So in the shared environment that Luce currently is, she can go ahead and then pick which cloud provider, right? So whatever is the one that you're more comfortable using, we provide, I think, more than 80 different regions across all these the main 3 public cloud providers, right? AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. And as you can see, there's some of those that has a free tier available that you can choose from, right? So you can go ahead and just choose whatever you are in the world. I know we have people joining from everywhere. Try to get the one closest where you are, right? So you're gonna have like better performance, all that kind of thing. And then it's giving you the ability now. This is kind of like new. I just found out when I was doing a demo. It changes sometimes, right? But like this was something that you have to do apart. And maybe on my blog when I wrote, it's kind of like giving directions and do that separately. We incorporate now on the wizard that you have like, hey, what the things that I need to do is just like, hey, I already want to create a user for my database, so I can already access as soon as the cluster is over. It's already going to be there, a user, right? That's what Luce just did. That put like an admin and a password, and then it's giving you the ability to like, hey, I'm going to be using this just for education purpose, or like for local development. So you can choose like, hey, I only want to add my network IP. So from my machine, I'm going to be able to connect to MongoDB running on that particular cloud. Or if you're like already setting up something more extensive for your team, then it's like a cloud environment. I'm already using that same cloud provider that I chose, for example, to connect to like my application to the database. And then you can go to different routes by doing VPC peering, right? Where you're gonna peer your VPC that you have with the one that we are providing with Atlas, or there is also private link, right? So that's kind of like, it's very neat that it makes even easier for if you're not like, for example, Joyce that doesn't have anything to follow, and after a few clicks, give you the ability to connect to that database and start working.
So yeah, like you saw, it was, there's a few decisions to make along the way, but you don't have to pay anything to learn, and it's only a few clicks to spin something up. It just goes away and provisions it, which is cool. Yeah. It just takes too long. This can take a few minutes, but we can always go and use another database, which is cool. Has anyone got any questions so far, whether it's about Postman, about MongoDB, about anything?
Luce, can you recap? You created an API key that was at the organization level?
Yep.
And what access did you provide?
Ownership, so they can do, so if we use the API key in something like Postman, we'll be able to just do whatever.
Okay, and then the database you set up was local?
Yeah, so that basically just means rather than say something like a project that's hosted in like AWS, it'll be from my IP address on my computer. If I've got Postman open, for example, that's considered local because it's Postman on my machine.
For development. And then Cassiano, you gave us credits. So when we want to upgrade a production like to a managed cloud, that's what the credits are for?
Yes, correct. And there's a on the I don't know if you can go back to the post. There's a link there when I give there's a video. Watch this video to learn how to add those credits. I think we're not gonna do this right now, but if you want to post that, that's how you use that Go Atlas 10. That's gonna give you $10, which will give you like depending on the tier you're gonna be running, right? You can give a couple of days of a fully dedicated tier, or there's like upper tiers on the shared environment that are not free. Those are like maybe $10 a month or something. But within every tier, I think on the dedicated, then you have access to the full features. The free tier has some limitations. I don't remember all of them, but it has some limitations if you're trying to use some enterprise features, right?
Okay.
And it's important, right, for anyone that is pretty new to MongoDB Atlas, right? Those 3 minutes, try to imagine if you have to do that all manually. That is the automation existing with Atlas, and we're going to go one step above, right? It's just like, hey, great automation of that automation. But behind the scenes, what has happened is that MongoDB is taking care, after you configure very easily that, it's taking care of like spinning up a MongoDB cluster with a 3 replica set, right? That gives you high availability. So the data is being replicated to 3 different servers. So all those, like, commissioning all those servers on that cloud provider, installing the binaries in all of them, configuring that as a replica set, adding those, like, the DB user, all that kind of thing with the version. This is all being done automatically. So within those 3 minutes, and depending on the size of the cluster you define, it's going to take, in between just a few minutes, or I think a very large one that I did at once is like up to 10 or 15 minutes. And as you can see now, Luce already have one up and running on that particular project, right?
Indeed, that didn't take long at all. And when you consider how much of the, like you were describing then, how many steps of provisioning all these different pieces and bring them all together with availability and different replica sets and stuff, all of that stuff has just been done for you automatically in a few minutes, which is cool. Yeah, so for those that don't see, the next step it told me to do was retrieve your project ID. So that's what you saw me just do, was just go and grab the project ID.
Yeah, and again, right, guys, you're going to see as soon as we, I think the next step, we put that aside, but like the next step should be to go like, how can I get this, great collection of those within Postman? And we have this run in Postman link that makes
wow, a magical button.
Yeah. So you guys going to see that. You're going to see that we have, I just picked the project ID, but depending on every single API that you're interested in running, you need to give some parameters, right? Some input for those. I just execute one. It is like we create that cluster, and I want to list, for example, all the clusters, right? All the databases that I have within that project. And I want to pass the ID of that project, so it shows me all those on that one. So that's what we're asking to do. Just to give one example, let's go ahead now, Luce, and just try to import that a Postman collection, right, from MongoDB Atlas into your own Postman, right?
Yeah. So there you go. We can fork the collection. Our workspace, so we can,
Yeah, I think what Joyce can, if you can explain a little bit, like what exactly we are doing now, because prior to these guys, and I think there's a link on the blog post. I wasn't aware of that new feature of like Postman. I have this, public workspaces and all that.
Yeah.
All I did, I export my collection to a Git, and
Of course you did.
Right? That was my way of like sharing and the community to add more things. But I think this is like a new, and I don't know how long is available this public workspace, Joyce, but if you can talk a little bit about it, would be nice.
Yeah, so the example I like to give, Cassiano, you did it exactly the way a lot of people do it. It's almost like you're working with the GitHub repository, right? You're downloading a file and then uploading it to wherever you need it. But if you know GitHub repos, you can also fork a repo. So that's what you're doing here. You're forking a collection. And it looks like it's erroring out. And I wonder if it has something to do with the button itself. Because MongoDB has the public workspace, you could just go to it directly and see if you can fork it. Cassiano, did you use that same collection that's in the...
I think I got like a false error, because when I was trying to do that, I did a couple of times, and then when I saw 3 different forks. That was, I think I was doing that yesterday. But yes, there is I can send you the link of the public list I have here. I'm gonna see if I can extract you.
Go to open Slack. I'm not on my work machine, so just bear with me a minute.
I send you the direct link, but Joyce, if you want to show how to search for, because it's not only from MongoDB, right? You can find other collections that people are sharing publicly, right?
Yeah, from Postman. So go to postman.com, or actually you have Postman downloaded already. You can go to Postman.
There we go. So that's the Postman application.
And then in the top middle search bar, you can search for MongoDB.
Might take a second just because my internet's being used to stream, but we'll see.
I think it's the VM. Okay, there you go.
Oh, nice. So we have Atlas and a new data API. That's cool. Oh, yeah, so you've got all these things you got here.
So somebody at MongoDB did a great job of documenting your entire Atlas API. So you can fork it from here. It was Cassiano?
No, not some of the documentation of like putting that on the workspace was done for the development relationship team. I think who did that? I can't remember. Was Rita or was no, I think it was Lauren. Lauren that helped us doing that. So I think she's in here. Like, thank you, Lauren, for that. But like if you go see all of those and you click in a specific API, what I've done only was if you go to the documentation, there's going to be a link that will send you directly to the documentation on the MongoDB data or the MongoDB website, where that is going to be the most updated version of that API, right? So you can easily like, hey, I can go through, and the way that we organize the folders is exactly how it is displayed on our documentation, right? So it's going to be fairly easily to navigate through the collection here on Postman, but also to find that in the MongoDB documentation.
Awesome.
Yeah, I saw you guys have a good number of forks. People have found this collection and have started forking in. They're either doing it from Cassiano's blog or they're searching for MongoDB in Postman and finding it and forking it.
Hey, look, we have a fork. Nice.
Yeah, I think it happened exactly what happened to me, Luce. You see that you have now on your workspace, right? My workspace, you have 3 forks. That's what I say was it is something, maybe
Hopefully
with that link that
don't
Joyce
need- yeah.
mentioned, right, or something. But it happened the same thing. When I saw, I was like, oh, I have 3 forks now.
Oh. Yeah, you can't share links, Joel. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, and just like Joyce mentioned that, we've seen some forks already happening. That's great. I think the idea I had with when I put that on a Git repo was just like, hey, you might be trying to use this sample and you saw that there's an error, right? So I cannot maintain this by myself. So I'm hopefully and I think you can do the same, Joyce, I think on you can fix something and then from the fork, right, just like a Git, you can push that, make a pull request, right? And provide some fix, or if you know that there's a new call that you want to introduce. So it is open to kind of like for the team at MongoDB who owns this workspace to evaluate, but like the community is open to help out, right? So it's kind of like the same idea that I had before, and it's provided here by Postman.
Yeah, if anybody, the MongoDB team clearly is paid to manage their API and make sure people can use it. But if you find a little typo, you can submit a pull request to and then contribute to the MongoDB collection. Like say there's a broken link or there's just like a flow that can be more clearly described. You can submit your own, whoever wants to can submit their own pull requests. Uh-oh, it's authorization time.
It is, I think. Okay, I instinctively scrolled down to the bottom to find a save button and then just realized it's hiding at the top.
Yeah, this is the important, right? That's where we combine all together, all that thing that you create your account in MongoDB Atlas, right? Once you have that, automatically you're going to create your own organization. And then with that one, you're able to go to your organization settings, go to Access Manager, create that API key that Luce created, right? And we want to and gave access to it. What we want to do is then leverage that API key within Postman that then you can use to run all these collections that you have, right? The way to do that is Luce was already doing, right, is go to on the highest level of your, on the MongoDB Atlas. And then if you click there, you're going to have all this describing the collection. So it would be like a general way to configure. And you can then define which type it is the standard way to use all those APIs. And the way you do that is by digest auth, right? And then using it as a user and password, like the public key and the private key. And then the cool thing about Postman is that for all the calls, you can define that is you're gonna use that global one, right? It's just defining that. Of course, if you want to change for a specific one, you can always go. But right, imagine you can go that on the folder, the highest folder, and then you can define if you have another folder extension on that folder, all the way to the call itself. You can define exactly which one.
Yeah, so that's authorization inheritance. So you can say digest auth. I want every single request in my collection to follow these, add these credentials to the proper header, or I don't even know how a digest auth works. But say you have one request and you want a special type of auth, you can override that inheritance.
Cool. And so does it default inherit out of the box? So I've specified digest auth, I've given the credentials. Is it going to use that for all the requests going forward automatically?
You can take a look. So if you expand the MongoDB Atlas collection and then expand maybe clusters, yeah, get all cluster, look under the authorization tab, and you can see this request on the right. This request is using the collection level.
Nice. So we can actually try this out now. So if we click send.
Oh, we have an extra step.
Okay. I'm getting carried away here. I'm getting excited that I'm doing cool things.
Which is fine. We all do. We want to all press that send button as quick as possible.
So get all. Yes, okay. Oh yeah, we need to put the project ID in. Of course we do. Okay, so we come back into here, so we need to update this. So we can set it as a variable. That'd be helpful in future.
So one thing that that we can do, Luce, here before you do that, this is a way that we can set up this. What we've done with the workspace as well, we create a kind of like an environment that is what is called with all the variables for that environment, right? So what we ship with this workspace. So if you see that right on the right top of your screen, just below your picture, there is no environment select. Once you fork that or you import and start using this workspace, we already ship one that is called Atlas. So if you select that, I think this is because we forked twice or something. If you select that and click on that icon just next to it, you're going to be able to see that once we create all that collections to be reusable, right? Instead of making that hard-coded or like the project ID, all of the parameters that you need, we create variables and we put all those variables on this environment called Atlas. Of course, you can replicate like, hey, I want to have a Atlas that is going to be my production environment, and I'm going to be an Atlas, or it's going to be my QA environment, another one's going to be my dev. And you can change that and quickly change the environment like selector or drop box. And that's how you can define those. So what you have to do here is just like, hey, we already create all those. All you have to do is whatever you pick it up from that project, I want to put that as my current value, save. And then when you mouse over that particular variable, you're going to see there is that new value, right, of your project ID. Don't forget to click on the save button.
Save.
Yeah, I was just looking for, it's there.
Yeah.
There's no color contrast, so it doesn't stand out as like this is a save button.
It's good usability feedback.
That's
true. I'm great usability feedback. I can record videos of me interacting with something and just picking holes.
I will call out that Cassiano immediately went to current value, and you're currently in a personal workspace. You can tell because in the top left, my workspace has a single head. But if you had two heads there, the icon, that means that somebody can be looking at your secrets. And if your project ID, project ID shouldn't be secret, should it? Like that's not sensitive?
No, you can't do much with a project ID. You'd need authorization to do things to it.
Yeah, that's why I did it. I did not put the user or the API key. I didn't put it as a variable per se, because one of the things that I noticed, and I think Postman might be working on it, on the variables would be nice to have a type of variable that it would be.
We have that now.
Oh, you guys have it? Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Go back to the environment if you wouldn't mind.
Of course.
The eyeball and then edit. So there's now a type column. So for project ID, if you want to call it secret, hopefully you have this there. That's going to obscure it, and then your teammates will not be able to access that. And then also for live streams, you don't have to worry about leaking your secrets.
Nice.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is that it's okay for you to have project ID in the initial value and current value because it's not sensitive. So what initial value does is save it to the account. So Luce, if you log in from a different machine, you'll be able to access that initial value.
Oh, nice. That's helpful.
Yeah, I remember that I had, guys, as you imagine, when I was creating all these variables has all those values on mine. And then for the first time, I remember, I think when I post on my personal GitHub account, I had all of that, and I'm just like, oh, that shouldn't be. So I have to go and erase all of them before I export. So when you guys, and that's what's done on our workspace here as well, that when you fork that, it is a empty canvas that you can add your own values on that. And that was great that you guys create this type for secrets now. We can do like an enhancement of like the API can be a variable as well.
Yeah, I think that hiding the secrets is a very common request. I've definitely leaked secrets before, or just had like some nosy person looking over my shoulder.
There you go. But I think now we should maybe have everything that we need. Can can you just mouse over all the variables?
So that's got a value.
Yeah, so version.
That's got a value.
And then the base URL,
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, the
That
base
was
URL
easy.
we put on that, just because it doesn't change a lot, but in case it changes, right, you can modify that.
Cool. So Jay Walters asked a question, which is probably best for you, Joyce. So you're saying both initial and current value are shared within the workspace?
Initial value is synced to saved. You can think of it as saved to your workspace. Current value is saved to your local session. So your instance of Postman on your machine. But if you shut down, if you exit out of Postman and then restart, it's a new session. So you will lose current value. It's not saved to your user.
Awesome. That's helpful to know, especially when dealing with secrets. So if we go ahead and hit send now, nope. It has a value. What is it unhappy about?
So if you want to do some debugging, it says could not send request at the bottom. View in console, and then we can see precisely what was being sent.
Oh, interesting. It has a value, but it's sending cache error.
Maybe just close and reopen, just, standard.
That sounds like a support.
There you go.
Support query.
Okay, let's try it and see.
There we go.
Hey, it worked. You were right. Nice. So we have this information now. Lots of stuff in there. It's all very technical. But yeah, we have our cluster 0. It might be a bit hard to see, but in our response, we have down here, you can see, oh, that was a 2 zoomed in.
You can drag that bar up if you want to make that space bigger, the one right above that.
Yeah, there we go. So we have cluster 0 here, and that is the default name. When you create a database cluster, cluster 0 is the default name it gives it. And I didn't change it when I created it, so we can see that it's referring to the cluster that we created earlier. So that's awesome. Yeah. I don't know if anyone's able to hear this, but I have cheer sounds.
Yeah, and the good thing is going to get.
I don't hear it.
No. So the cool thing is
because to share your audio, desktop audio with StreamYard, you have to share your screen. But I'm sharing the virtual machine, not my computer screen, so I can't share the audio. But yeah, just take my word for it. I did just play a cheering sound to celebrate that worked. Bravo indeed.
Fireworks.
Cool. So we got our first bit of information back. Nice. We got our response that we looked at. Oh yeah, and then you can just start testing any endpoints that you like, as long as you know the values for them.
Yeah, one last thing that I add, I think it's helpful for developers itself, is just like, hey, I want to integrate with something, right? In this case, MongoDB Atlas, right? And I have all these APIs. The good thing is, like, instead of going through the documentation, trying to figure out, you have all this organized, ready to go, and this very visual interface helpful. And when you're ready, like, hey, I know that I want to call this API and I want to put that on my script or my system or my portal that I'm building. There's this code snippet thing that allows you to give, like, hey, this is how you call in this particular language, right? So the curl is here, so you also can do the curl for scripting, but all those other ones, and of course that Joyce can do a better job, but I thought it was very helpful. We do have that on Compass as well, if you guys are familiar with MongoDB Compass, which is like when you're building a query, you can also then give you some snippets, so you can just copy and paste and change just the values that you need to adapt.
I think it's an Atlas as well, Like, it's not just Compass. I think if you go, because some of Compass is just the Atlas UI.
Correct.
So if you go into, because I don't have Compass installed on this virtual machine, but if you go into here and you've actually got data, you can start to do things with it, like search and command line tools and all sorts of things. Yeah, but yeah, when you've got the data, you can start to do things with it, like building up step-by-step aggregations and queries, and then, like you say, you can export them to your language of choice.
Correct. Yeah, and guys,
well-deserved shout out.
A lot of our training, it's based where Luce was right there. Once you create a cluster, you can load some sample data. So if you scroll down a little bit, there's a button right there saying, and that sample data set, you can see it, you can download that and see it yourself, but this is going to build that a lot of sample collections that throughout our entire documentation, it's going to allow you to learn how to do those things, right? So it's very helpful. It's there. You don't have to worry about creating, and all the examples on our documentation mainly, I'm not going to say all of them, but mainly use those collections that we import with this sample that you can right away click it. And the good thing, you also can do all these things that we're doing through the UI through an API. The resources there, right? So the same.
Yeah, so what I'm doing here is I've just switched to a different database. It already has the sample data set loaded, so you can just get a quick idea of what's there. But what's really cool is that if you don't use your cluster enough, it turns it off, so it's not spending money from something you're not running. So I've just had to resume it because I've not used this one in so long, which I think is great. But it'll take a minute to come to life. But one of the cool things I wanted to talk about here as well is not only do we have this Atlas collection, but there's also, if we go back to MongoDB, we can do a search again. There we go. We also have these new endpoints, which is, how'd you go back? Oh, we go. Get in there. There's also data API now. So if you want like an endpoint to call not just from a driver or from like CLI or from the UI, you can now do things with our data API. So you can literally find a document. And so we've also got, Postman pre-written collections here as well, which is super cool. Data API, I think, is still in preview at the moment. Like it's new, but it's amazing. So not as many people know about it.
Delete many documents. Let's try that one.
Delete many. Yeah, I don't know if we might need to update the values. Yeah, so it doesn't have an endpoint right now. But if we had if we can get the value for one.
Yeah, you have to enable that data API that will create automatically a new key for you, like a different key, because now instead of like dealing with Atlas, a platform to create cluster, add users to Atlas, all that kind of thing, we are talking about how we can provide APIs to manipulate the data inside, for example, this cluster 0, and inside like a database inside that cluster, right? So you're going to be able to do CRUD operations, right? So out of the box, Atlas will give you the ability to configure that really quickly. And then from outside, right, you can say like, hey, I would like to insert all these documents to that particular collection on this database on this cluster, right? So it's very powerful. It's in preview. So it wasn't in preview when I built that Atlas, but it's the Atlas resources. But it's another thing, and I'm very glad Luce and colleagues are working and actually add this. It's already there provided to you, right?
Yeah, so you can literally just go in and say, hey, I want to enable the data API on that cluster. So it's just a couple of clicks. So once you've got that enabled on your cluster, you can go into Postman and see how you could do those API calls from inside Postman. So again, it's just automating the automation. It's great.
Yeah, one thing that Luce mentioned before that it's another good use cases on how you're admin Atlas and leveraging your the Atlas APIs. Let's say that you're gonna be rolling out Atlas for all your teams, right? And then everybody's gonna be able to have their own clusters, but they have their own different time zones that they're working. And like, hey, I'm working, from 8 to 5, whatever, right? Is like commercial hours or business hours, right? And I'm gonna be running a script that I'm gonna be pausing all those development clusters on that particular time frame, right? So you can make that particular by calling an API to do that and pause all those clusters, or when it needs to be done, right? Like on the schedule for every single development team that you guys have. So that's a very powerful way that you can leverage the APIs as well.
I'm snooping in your public workspace, and it looks like the MongoDB data API collection was added 6 hours ago. Fresh off the presses.
Oh,
yes, it is. It's very new, but it's and I believe my colleague Joel either wrote it or was involved in it, which is super exciting because he's in the chat. But yeah, what this wasn't deliberately timed. It's just worked out beautifully that it's gone live just as we stream about it.
yeah. And Luce, if you can just open the MongoDB Atlas again, I just want to highlight all the different resources that you see. We concentrate on cluster, but you see hey, database users, custom roles that you can create. You can create, you can modify organizations, right? Serverless instances is pretty new as well. And then you can keep going, right, with all the different configurations, right, that you can define. And if you go to the on the right-hand side, if you pick one call, Luce, for example, if you expand clusters or whatever, and pick that get all clusters, click on that, you're gonna see if you click on the document on the right-hand side, right on the top, that's the documentation portion, right? So if you click it, you see that I just paste there the documentation for this call. So you don't have to go and Google it, for example. Just keep an eye that you can click there. It's going to directly send you to the documentation. It doesn't make sense for me to copy and paste there because this is going to be the team responsible for updating. The documentation is always going to, update here first. So I just linked there, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, like you say, you almost want sort of one source of truth with documentation. It gets risky to copy and paste, but just having that link there that you can go out to is amazing. I love it.
Yeah, and that's how you can start building another collection and copying all those calls and putting on another collection to create a workflow, right? So that's what I've sometimes demonstrate to customers hey, how can I create automation to download all the backups that I have, right? You can take a backup of your database on MongoDB Atlas and we host that for you. But let's say that you want to keep that, you can retain that for a year. After a year, we don't need to have that on the MongoDB Atlas platform. We can delete that. But for some reason, you would like to bring that and put in some S3 bucket that you have just for keep that for another 5 years. And then I was showing how they can hey, you can go and download by calling these APIs. It's going to download that. So there's other ways that you can then find all the APIs you need to do that process that you're trying to automate, create, test it, and then export that as a code snippet for the script you're creating. And it's a way to facilitate that process, right?
Yeah, you can pull that client-side code, but you can also build a collection. So I'm in Postman every day. So what I would do is I would say get all clusters, maybe determine the health of the cluster, write a test that says it's still running or it's some stats around it. Have a separate folder with those API calls, or even create a separate collection, and you can schedule that to run on Postman Cloud for free. Or there's this new feature there on the left called flows. Cassiano, I don't know if you've seen flows yet, but
No,
you're in a public workspace and you're not allowed to mess with MongoDB's public workspace. But if you were in my workspace, you would be able to essentially drag and drop blocks to have your API workflow. You can have squiggles. It looks like a bowl of spaghetti.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
You can make one.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. So if you don't want to, create your own script and schedule that, there you go. Postman can do that for you. You can create your workflows and schedule to run that and call all the APIs you needed.
Yeah, that's new.
That's pretty cool.
So you're selecting the collection, and now you're selecting the clusters folder. And then you can drill down and select the request that you want, pair it with an environment.
That's cool. And then we can assign values. We've done that, so it's on.
I think this is a much better solution than what I was trying to do. So I've done exactly what you mentioned, Joyce. I didn't export or share that, but internally with my colleagues, I say hey, if you create an interesting workflow, put in another collection so we can share with each other.
Yeah.
But but then I had to do like a call after the other call and then use some scripting. And I think this is a better way to visualize, and probably a better way. I don't know if you have to script a lot in here, but like it visually looks much nicer.
I personally like scripting, so I do all my workflows in a collection. But if you're explaining it to someone else, having them picture, okay, now then this one gets called, and then you go back to this one, and then this one gets called 3 times, and then it goes here. You see like a little dot moving, and then you can picture it a lot better.
Yeah, like I probably not configured it right, which is why it's complaining at me. But yeah, you know, if you obviously won't do it on stream now, but if you take the time to kind of set this up right, like you say, it's an amazing, you know, if you're a visual person, you can do it like that. It's an amazing teaching tool. We're explaining to someone what's happening. And as Joel said, yeah, you might even use it for the data API stuff too. So look at us all these beautiful things happening at once.
Learning with Luce.
Exactly. This is why I love doing these streams, because, you know, I guarantee that both myself, my guests, and the viewers will learn at least 1 or 2 amazing things each time. That's awesome. So is there any other exciting new Postman features that you want to share with us that's either just released or in the pipeline?
I will show you one modal. So if you go to the next to my workspace, click that new gray button.
Yep. There we go. Yeah.
We're an API, like a lot of people know Postman as an API client way to send HTTP calls, but now we have support for WebSockets and gRPC.
Nice. Woo!
Yeah. Okay, you guys are not as excited as I am, but I've been living in HTTP land for many moons, and there's a ton of people that are doing asynchronous like development, and it's just very exciting.
Yeah, this is definitely exciting for the people that use it. Like I'm a bit of rusty when it comes to coding. I started to write, as I mentioned earlier, I started work on a Twitter bot the other day to tweet out random quotes from things I've highlighted on Kindle. And I actually had to reach out to the coding community and get reminded of data types because I'd forgotten what I needed in C#. So this is amazing for those that like code all the time and use these things. I'm just, I don't code as much as I should.
Hey, Joyce, are you guys, is this works for messaging as well, the WebSocket or the gRPC? I'm rusty on that matter as well.
Okay, let's all agree that we're all very, very rusty. For the WebSockets, you open a connection and then you can send a payload and receive a payload. So you have that bidirectional workflow. Whereas in HTTP, you're kind of like gathering your auth, you're gathering your parameters, and then you're sending it off and seeing what you get back.
Okay.
Yeah, so as Jay Walters just pointed out in the chat, WebSocket will be great for TwitchBot testing because TwitchBots often use WebSockets, but trying to test them can be really awkward. So this could actually be super helpful.
That's an interesting suggestion, Jay Walter. Yeah, because the way I do Twitter bots is I do like short polling, and I'm like every 5 minutes, call the Twitter API and see what there is, or call this other API and then send it out every 5 minutes.
That's awesome. Well, there you go. That's something that we can try out. But yeah, like you say, everyone associates Postman with just HTTP request testing. But like all these things, it's so much more than what it used to be. And it can do all these amazing things now.
Yeah, so if FooHawks is still there and you're on Insomnia, check out Postman.
I love it. So that's pretty cool. Anything else you wanted to share with people?
I could talk all day about Postman personally. Somebody was talking about automating documentation. Cassiano, I absolutely agree. Link to the single source of truth, the documentation. But if your team uses API specifications, there's ways to, again, automate that so that you're not manually updating a collection.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's when you define our APIs and then generates with all like the parameters, what is going to be which kind it is, right? If it is a put, if it is a post, right? All that kind of, okay. And then auto generate that for you, right?
And I saw the Atlas had a serverless option, and that's super hot. And of course, it makes things flexible. There's a couple things that are not called serverless on Postman, but it's run on Postman. serverless to you. So you can schedule like a Twitter bot or something using a Postman monitor. And then there's also mock servers. So on the left sidebar, those are like the key things that most people are using.
That's cool. There we go. We've got chat showing their favorite features of Postman now. If anyone else has got favorite features, feel free to share them. So Jay Walter's favorite feature is a visualize tab on responses.
Jay Walter is a power user. I will give a shout out to this promotion that we're doing in the month of January, before January 27th. Jay Walter, if you tweet using the hashtag Postman favorites and say that exact same thing, you're entered in a drawing for a Postman bobblehead.
Nice.
Do you have that with you, Joyce?
No, I'm traveling. I'm in the mountains right now. I would love to show it to you. It's the cutest thing.
Well, there you go. Visualize. Let's see what he was talking about.
So for this one, you will need to know how to write HTML and a little teeny bit of JavaScript.
Oh, count me out. JavaScript makes me stressed.
But like let's take a look at the response that you got. So go under Pretty tab. So if you look at the JSON object, you have results. You have a link to a link to probably a list of your clusters. You have status of cluster, like running or something like that, pending.
If you scroll down, you're going to see like on the results over there, that's like, hey, do you have auto scaling configured or no, right? Do you have a backup enable? You see that it is false, right? So all the information about that cluster, right, is going to be in there. What I like about this is instead of just getting plain text, right, which you can also see here if you like, I think if you go to raw, I think it's going to show, but kind of like if you're using curl, it's all that. Yeah, and here you have all separate, all the headers that are coming, right? You can visualize in different ways. You have what is the status that you have, the time is important, the size of that. All those kind of things are very, you can easily copy, you can search on it. I'm a big fan as well for, I think it was Jay Walter, right? That's another reason why I like it a lot.
Yeah, no, it's actually pretty cool. Like you say, if you know HTML and JavaScript and you're not afraid to just write a little bit of stuff, that's awesome. John, what's the hashtag? So
it's hashtag Postman favorites. It's spelled American spelling, so not OU. That's
okay. Yeah, no, I was going to write it in the chat, but I'm using a Mac layout keyboard on a Windows machine set to US English, so I could get @ symbols where I expect them to be, but I don't actually know where the hashtag sign is on US keyboard without looking, so I can write it. Yeah, Toefrog's just saying silly Americans. Just to clarify, Toefrog's from Texas. Like he's American. He's not being like anti-American. That's awesome. So yeah, it looks like Postman has all these extra amazing things that not many people know about, and then paired with all these public collections and workspaces that MongoDB is now generating. That actually you can do so many things with this.
I think the MongoDB team has done a great job with the like somebody on your team probably said, okay, there's X amount of people using our API. There could be this many more people using our API. We have a pretty badass API. There's a lot of stuff you could do with it, a lot of automations, a lot of workflows. Like let's make it easy for people to learn how to use our API, even if you have to use digest auth.
But I think the cool thing about that though is, like you say, we've realized that MongoDB is doing a great job with actually putting the time in to make these collections on Postman. So now if you've got new things that you need to try out, you've now found a new bunch of guinea pigs.
It's true. Some public APIs, they have like a beta, or Twitter actually has a development or experimental collection. So they're like, oh, should we create this new endpoint to do this cool thing? Let's test it out first.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I did have the Twitter collection open the other day actually, but it was painful. But that's Twitter's fault, not Postman. The Postman collection was great. It's just that Twitter involves OAuth 2, and authorization is just painful as a developer.
It is.
Awesome. So I think we got to the end of the post, didn't we? I think we just got sidetracked by all the exciting things going on. So there's code snippets, more, yeah, there you go. And then there's examples and documentation. Awesome.
Yay.
Woo. Is there anything else you wanted to share with us, Cassiano, that you've learned since this? You wrote this article?
What is that? I'm sorry.
I was going to say, is there anything that you want to share? Because this article's a couple of months old now. Is there anything else you want to share, or anything new that you've learned since?
No, it was funny because the thing is, I'm getting feedback that is helpful, right? Not only if I share this with the users that I worked with, right, but like the broader ones see that, and I got feedback from others saying like, hey, this was so helpful, blah 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 blah. I was surprised, right, when I started like talking about this. I think someone from Postman reached out to MongoDB about that, so it was perfect timing when we did all this. So I've learned all these great things that you can actually have the workspace and a different way, better way maybe to share all those. That was very great. In between, it's funny, right? I had people reaching out to me like, hey, I went through all the APIs that you put on that Postman, but I don't see any way to manipulate the data, right? The whole focus here is APIs for the Atlas platform. And then luckily enough, a few months later, I actually got like, hey, we're announcing this in preview mode that you have the data API. So then you can do some calls and integrate or make something through our APIs. Before you were able to do that with Atlas, leveraging Realm, which is like, would be like serverless functions and all that, and create some APIs, but you would have to create the API itself. Now we're providing this. So this is like, it's great with a few months, like how things improve, right? When I was like, Joyce mentioned another thing that I didn't know about the type and secret, right? That is very helpful for sensitive data, especially, of course, Postman it's a beloved tool, right, across all the developers, right? They're learning or everything, but also in the enterprise. And when you're talking about enterprise features, that is very helpful to have, right? But yeah, other than that, I think my goal is when it comes to October this year, I want to go and have a look and help the development relations team that is taking over, at least managing this, to help it visualize. I remember, I think when I put together the serverless API wasn't there, and I think Lauren actually added those. It was like new APIs that we roll out, right? So within a year, we would like to go and review all those to add the ones or see if all of them still working. So Postman is going to be very easy to test if all those APIs are still valid, and then keep that update. And maybe, who knows, write a blog post that we're going to talk about a specific, and maybe involving the workflow that Joyce just mentioned, right? So we can like, hey, leveraging all these APIs to a real life example, and then we can stream again, Luce, to show
always. My guests are always welcome. If you've got something that you want to teach me or you want the world to know about, come be a guest and teach me all about it. Awesome. So I think we've covered what we wanted to learn. I know I can't speak for anyone else, but I've learned loads today. So that's awesome, and even things we didn't expect to learn today. And I love Postman even more than I did before we started.
There's a question from Jenser from Twitch about why do we need to create an account? You can use Postman locally so that you don't have to see, if you're like worried about cloud kind of things, there's a scratch pad. So Luce was using the desktop app. There's the option to work locally using the scratch pad. I think a lot of people that have concerns about being in the cloud will use that. I will give a shout out for I know I keep giving accolades to the DevRel team at MongoDB, but my colleague is going to be posting a very short featured list of really badass data storage APIs, and MongoDB is going to be one of the public APIs featured, because you guys have done a really great job. Besides having a very solid and usable API, you guys have put a lot of work into documenting it and, again, thinking about the end user. So I think that should be coming out in the next week or so.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
Where's the best place to follow Postman updates if people want to see that when it goes live?
Our Twitter handle is getpostman. So give that a follow. give myself a follow. Maybe I'll tweet about it. I'll tweet about that one because that's cool, the data storage. Because I told you at the beginning of the stream, a lot of people ask, how do I access a database with an API for X number of reasons? And I think that'll be very interesting to our community.
There we go. So I've just dropped Twitter links into the chat, so everyone go and follow. Cassiano, do you have a Twitter account you want to plug?
Mine is pretty simple. It is just at Cassiano Bine altogether. That is I'm not clever enough to come up with nice, cool Twitch names, right? So just it's just like my name at Cassiano Bine altogether. And you can find me if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Just search for Cassiano Bine. There's not a lot of Cassiano Bines around there. So
yeah, I've just popped a banner on for those that want to follow me on Twitter. So I'm at LuceCarter1 because someone with far fewer followers than me had got Luce Carter before I did. But someone was jokingly telling me yesterday. So for those that don't know, I'm in the process of writing a book all about MongoDB Atlas with .NET. And someone was saying, like, we're joking, telling me that once my book's published, we should trademark my name and then claim the handle back from Twitter.
I didn't even know you could do that. You should just get verified.
You can trademark your name. And then I don't know how much it costs in the US. In the UK, it costs about $170, I think, to make a trademark of your name.
Oh, worth it.
Or make a trademark in general. And then, apparently you can fill out a form and claim it back from Twitter if you want your handle back.
So then you can have that. Is it Instagram or Twitch that has the official one to say that? Is that what you get?
So Twitter has this thing called verification where you get a blue tick. It used to be a lot more prestigious than now. These days, there's a lot of confusion as to how you can get a blue tick because I think they temporarily shut down the program for a while. So I don't think you'd get a blue tick just from having a trademark. It's normally saved for celebrities and YouTubers with millions of followers.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's like the verified or something, right? I didn't know.
Yeah, verified. Yeah,
for celebrities, right?
Yeah, I use Polywork, which is like it's not Twitter, but it's just you can share highlights, and it's a bit less toxic than LinkedIn. That recruiters just message you constantly. You can get verified on that just by having a call with them to prove your identity. So I'm verified on Polywork, but not Twitter.
Guys, this was a very great experience. I never streamed before. Hope you guys enjoy it.
I did. Thank you to both of you.
I hate to say goodbye, but I still have a job and I have a meeting coming in 2 minutes.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to wrap up the stream anyway because we've got to the end of the tutorial, and we don't like to stream for too long because it gets a bit heavy. But yeah, thank you both for joining me. It was awesome, and I learned so much. And everyone make sure that you follow both Joyce and Cassiano because they clearly know lots of amazing things.
All right. Awesome. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone, and I will see you soon.